Good morning and greetings from Northumberland on Tuesday the 14th of July. It's another bright and glorious morning. Today the church celebrates a man called John Keble, the man whom the college in Oxford is named after. It was named very shortly after he died as a tribute to him. And I want to talk a little bit about him. But in order to understand Keble, you have to understand a phenomenon in the church in the 19th century that we call the Oxford movement. The Oxford movement was a group of people, mainly associated with the University of Oxford, and hence the name, who were very concerned about the reform of the Church of England, and that it should be reformed in such a way that recognised its place as a branch of the worldwide church. Their view was that, there were basically three branches: Orthodoxy in the East, Roman Catholicism in the West, and Anglicanism, which they saw as a separate branch, but a branch alongside those churches. And being Western was more akin to Roman Catholicism than to Orthodoxy, although the three branches were held to be in common in the church. The Oxford movement was also concerned about the government and reformation of the governance of the church by a parliament that was increasingly non-Anglican. And until the late 1700s, the parliament had been completely composed of Anglican Christians, and after the reformations of the Whig government, it was no longer completely Anglican, and the Oxford movement was concerned about the way in which non-Anglican Christians could have an influence on the Anglican Church. I won't go into that much more, it's a complicated one. But they were also concerned that alongside this recovery of the sacramental life and the life of the Anglican Church, with elements that come from before the Reformation, from the English Church before the Reformation, there should be a concentration upon pastoral care, spiritual care, and the nurturing of congregations. And indeed, from the Oxford movement, as from the evangelical movement, there became a great group of priests who went out and worked in very difficult circumstances in order to support parishes in urban areas, in deprived areas, what we became to call the slum priests. So there's a whole part of that. And Keble was at the centre of this. He preached a sermon in 1833 on what he called national apostasy, on the way in which the government was changing, as he saw it, the nature of the church in the United Kingdom. And that was a spark that sort of set the Oxford movement going. Though Keble wasn't someone who wanted the limelight, although he'd been elected as a fellow of Oriel College when he was a very young man, he resigned that fellowship in order to work as a curate to his father in Gloucestershire, and later he resigned again from a professorship in Oxford to work in Hursley near Winchester as a parish priest. And in that time his concern was the pastoral and spiritual nurture of the people given to his charge. During the time in which he was a curate, he wrote many, many poems that became hymns. And these became part of our English hymnody. And I'm going to quote a verse from one of them that you'll know, and it's from New Every Morning. And it's about the way in which he saw the ministry of the church as preparing people for heaven. This is what he writes. Only, O Lord, in thy dear love, fit us for perfect rest above, and help us this and every day to live more nearly as we pray. You can see in that verse the the principles that Newman espoused being encapsulated. Our spiritual lives fit us for the life of heaven, and our prayer lives help us to live in a way that is pleasing to God. That message which Newman, which Keble proclaimed in the middle of the 19th century, is still a message for us today. And although people like Newman, who I nearly mentioned in that, later on became Roman Catholics because they didn't think the Church of England could sort itself out, people like Keble and those who were alongside him and came after him played a transforming role in the life of the Church of England. And so we give thanks for that, and we pray that we may, every day, live more nearly as we pray. May God bless us.